Semantics, at its core, is the systematic study of meaning communicated through language. It's about understanding how words and phrases convey specific ideas and concepts. In modern linguistics, we operate on the fundamental idea that everyone's ability to use language relies on a kind of internalized knowledge, something happening inside our minds that shapes how we understand and produce language. The main goal of a semanticist, then, is to investigate and describe this underlying semantic knowledge, what we know about meaning beyond just the words themselves. It's fascinating because semantics is considered one of the most diverse areas within linguistics, often overlapping with fields like philosophy and psychology. This overlap highlights how complex and interconnected our understanding of meaning truly is, tying into broader questions about how we think, perceive, and communicate. So, as we explore semantics, we're really delving into the foundation of how language shapes our understanding of the world and ourselves. Linguistic competence is a fascinating aspect of our innate cognitive abilities as human beings. It refers to the natural capacity we have for language, something we're born with rather than something we simply learn. When we talk about speakers, we're referring to the various types of knowledge they possess. This includes how to pronounce words correctly, how to construct grammatical sentences, and understanding the meanings behind expressions. One of the most crucial types of knowledge is semantic knowledge. This allows us to recognize when different sentences are actually describing the same situation, or when a sentence might be ambiguous or even contradictory. It's this semantic understanding that helps us make sense of language in a meaningful way. It's important to realize that language learning isn't just about mastering sounds and grammatical structures. It's also about learning how to connect those structures to meaning. We learn to associate words and rules with concepts and ideas, which makes language truly functional and rich. Ultimately, language is part of our internal knowledge, something deeply rooted within us. That enables us to communicate, interpret, and understand the world around us in complex and nuanced ways. Let's explore how we can understand the different types of knowledge that speakers have by looking at linguistic description. To do this, linguists divide language analysis into distinct levels. These levels help us see how different parts of language work together to enable communication. Traditionally, there are 4 main levels of analysis: phonology, which deals with sounds; morphology, focusing on words; syntax, which looks at sentence structure; and semantics, which is all about meaning. Each of these levels acts like a separate module of knowledge. Think of them as different pieces of a puzzle that need to fit together. When they do, they form a complete picture that allows us to communicate effectively. So, understanding these levels helps us see how complex and layered language really is. It also highlights the importance of each component in the overall system of communication. This layered approach is central to understanding how people produce and interpret language in real life. Let's take a closer look at phonology, which is all about understanding the sounds that make up a language and the rules that govern how these sounds combine into words. It's really about decoding physical sounds, those audible vibrations, into functional units known as phonemes. These phonemes are the basic building blocks of spoken language. Now, phonology isn't just about sounds. It's also about how these sounds work together to give language its expressive power. It's similar to syntax in that way, but specifically focused on sound patterns and structures. For example, knowing how to pronounce a word correctly, what we call phonology, is different from knowing what the word means, which is semantics. And this distinction is quite important. A person might be able to say a word perfectly, that's mastering its phonology, without actually understanding what that word signifies. So, phonology helps us understand the sound system of language, which is fundamental to effective communication, but it's just one piece of the larger puzzle of language structure. Morphology focuses on how words are internally structured from smaller, meaningful units. It helps us understand how words are put together and how their structure influences their meaning. Essentially, it decodes a series of phonemes, those small sound units, into morphemes, which are the minimal units of meaning in a language. For example, the word cats contains the root cat and the plural suffix s. Knowing a word really involves morphological knowledge, like understanding its plural forms, past tense, or how it changes depending on tense or context. So, morphology is all about understanding the structure of words, which is crucial for grasping how language works at a deeper level. This connects to the overall theme of language processing and comprehension, showing us how the parts of words contribute to meaning and communication. So, syntax is essentially the study of how words can be combined into larger units like phrases, clauses, and sentences. It focuses on the formal relationships between these signs or words, making sure that the sequences we produce are well-formed according to grammatical rules. This is important because it helps us understand what makes a sentence correct or understandable. One of the most fascinating aspects of syntax is its productivity. That means, with just a small set of rules, we can generate an infinite number of new and unique sentences. This ability to create endless variations is what allows us to be so flexible and creative with language. And when we talk about syntax, we're really looking at the level of sentence structure, how all these parts fit together to form meaningful, grammatical sentences. It's a key piece of the overall puzzle in understanding how language functions as a system. Semantics is all about the level of analysis that focuses on the meanings of words and sentences. It acts as the interpretive component, helping us decode the output from the syntactic level into something that makes sense and has meaning. While phonology and syntax give us the expressive side of language, basically how things are said and how they're structured, semantics is what gives language its content. It's the part that makes each linguistic unit unique and distinguishable from others based on its meaning. So, in the bigger picture of language processing, semantics is what helps us understand what words and sentences truly mean, connecting everything together into a coherent and meaningful communication. Although we often analyze different levels of language separately, it's important to remember that a single word actually unites them all. When a speaker uses a word, they need to understand its pronunciation, its grammatical role, and its meaning all at the same time. This highlights how interconnected these levels are in language processing. Linguistic encoding is the process where a mental message gets transformed into linguistic forms that we can produce as speech. It involves translating what we want to say into the specific sounds and structures our speech organs need to produce. Also, when we look at sentence meaning, it's often compositional. That is, the overall meaning is built up from the meanings of individual words and how they are combined syntactically. The way words are arranged shapes the meaning of the entire sentence, which is a core concept in understanding how language functions as a structured system. All of this ties back to the overall theme, how the different levels of language work together seamlessly. Despite analyzing them separately, they are fundamentally interconnected, and understanding this unity is key to grasping the complexity of human language. In most models, semantics is considered a core module, just like syntax and phonology. It's seen as an essential part of the linguistic system, operating in parallel with these other components. Its main role is to serve as the interface between the formal linguistic system, the rules and structures we use to form language, and our human conceptual or thought systems. In other words, semantics helps bridge the gap between language and meaning in our minds. Some theories, such as cognitive grammar, argue that semantics cannot really be separated from syntax or even from our general cognition. They see meaning as deeply intertwined with how we structure language and think overall. On the other hand, there are other perspectives that maintain a clearer distinction. These views see linguistic knowledge, like semantics, as separate from extralinguistic or world knowledge, such as encyclopedic facts about the world. So, when we look at the place of semantics in the overall model of grammar, it's often positioned as a central, interconnected component that links language with cognition, but its exact role can vary depending on the theoretical approach. This discussion highlights how integral semantics is, but also how complex and nuanced its relationship is with other aspects of language and thought. Semantics is the scientific study of meaning in language, and what makes it fascinating is that it uses systematic and objective methods to explore how we communicate. Its ultimate goal is to describe what words, phrases, and sentences mean, not just in a specific language, but across languages in general. This helps us understand how language works at a fundamental level. One of the key ideas here is that semantics distinguishes between knowledge of language, that is, how language is structured and understood, and knowledge of the world, which involves our experiences and facts outside of language. By making this distinction, semantics reveals the underlying structures of human communication. It shows us how we use language to represent ideas, concepts, and relationships, which is central to understanding how we share and interpret meaning. Overall, thinking of semantics as a scientific discipline helps us appreciate the complexity and elegance of language as a system for conveying meaning, and it ties back to our broader goal of understanding human communication in all its richness.